The ballroom glittered with chandeliers, golden ribbons, and the kind of laughter that only money could buy. Crystal glasses clinked, laughter echoed, and tuxedos gleamed under the spotlights. It was Renteca's annual gala, an exclusive, invite-only affair where billion-dollar deals began with cocktails and polished smiles. Lucas Wren, the man behind the empire, stood at the center of it all. Tall, effortlessly handsome in a tailored navy suit, and armed with the kind of self-assured charm that disarmed even the most hardened executives, Lucas looked every bit the billionaire playboy the tabloids painted him to be. He wasn't heartless, just bored. Another deal closed, another speech given, another night of empty praise and champagne. He turned away from a clingy socialite and headed for the kitchen, seeking something, anything, real. That's when he saw her. Back behind the heavy double doors, hidden from the grandeur, stood a woman elbow-deep in suds, scrubbing trays with quiet precision. Her dark hair was tied back in a messy bun, and her uniform was soaked from the waist down. She didn't flinch when the door swung open. She just kept working. Lucas smirked and leaned against the doorframe. Tough crowd out here. You're missing the party. The woman glanced up, her eyes meeting his with a coolness that stopped him short. I've got my own party back here. All the dish soap I can drink. That made him chuckle, genuinely. He stepped closer. You've got a sense of humor. What's your name? Maria, she said without missing a beat. Well, Maria, Lucas said theatrically, raising his imaginary champagne flute, you are formally invited to the gala. Come out, dazzle us. She arched an eyebrow, unimpressed. You're joking. Lucas grinned. Dead serious. Black tie optional. Maria studied him for a second, then gave a small nod. All right. He blinked. Wait, seriously? Sure, she said, turning back to the dishes. Why not? Lucas laughed again, shaking his head as he walked away. See you there, Maria. He didn't expect to see her again. The party was in full swing an hour later when the murmurs started. People turned toward the ballroom entrance, their expressions a mix of confusion and amusement. Lucas followed their gaze and felt his smirk fade. She stood in the doorway, that same woman from the kitchen, wearing an outdated but elegant maroon gown that hugged her figure in all the right ways. Her hair was down, curly and wild. Her eyes scanned the room with a mixture of curiosity and nerves. People whispered. Is that? What's she doing here? Lucas stepped forward before anyone else could. You actually came, he said, eyes wide. You invited me, Maria replied, lifting her chin. I didn't think you would. Well, I didn't think a billionaire would hang out by the kitchen, but here we are. A pause. Then Lucas burst out laughing. You are something else, Maria. She smiled, barely. You going to introduce? Or should I just grab a drink and start mingling? He shook his head, amused and impressed. Really impressed. Lucas offered his arm. Come on. Let's make some rich people uncomfortable. The night turned on its head. Maria wasn't just tolerated, she became the center of attention. Her witty replies and grounded observations disarmed even the most arrogant guests. She wasn't flashy, but she was magnetic. And Lucas? He couldn't take his eyes off her. At one point, his longtime investor, Gerald Keaton, pulled him aside. Where did you find her? She found me, Lucas said. She's sharp. Who is she really? Lucas didn't know. But now, he wanted to. As the night wound down, Maria stood by the balcony, sipping water from a wineglass. Lucas joined her. Why'd you really come? He asked. She looked at him, eyes clear. To remind myself I don't belong in that kitchen. Lucas tilted his head. And here? I don't know yet, she said honestly. But for once, I wanted to be seen. He was quiet for a moment. Then he reached into his pocket and handed her a sleek black card. What's this? She asked. An offer, he said. Come work with me. 1 week. Intern, advisor, dishwasher, I don't care. Just come. Maria stared at the card. Then looked at him. You still joking? He grinned. Try me. And this time, she smiled back. Maria Reyes walked through the towering glass doors of Rentec headquarters in clothes that didn't belong in an office. Black slacks, a neatly pressed blouse, and sneakers that had seen better days. Still, she walked tall. Because she remembered who she was, before life threw its punches. She told herself it was only 1 week. The receptionist blinked as Maria approached. I'm here for Mr. Wren, she said calmly, offering the sleek black card he'd given her at the gala. The woman glanced at the card, then her screen. Okay. 1 moment. Within minutes, an assistant, dressed like someone plucked straight out of a fashion magazine, escorted her upstairs. The top floor was all glass, wood, and steel. Clean, clinical. Everything screamed power. Lucas Wren stood by the window, city skyline behind him, phone to his ear. He turned, paused mid-sentence, and ended the call. You came. You offered. I was half joking. Maria folded her arms. I wasn't. Lucas looked her over, not in a condescending way, but curious, like trying to read a riddle. Then he smiled. All right, Maria Reyes. Let's see what happens when you walk through the front door instead of the back. Her first task was simple: sit in on meetings. Lucas assigned her to shadow him and his executive team. He introduced her as a consulting observer. Vague enough that no one knew what to make of it. The reactions were predictable. Some executives were polite. Some ignored her. 1 or 2 sneered. But Maria kept quiet, took notes, and listened. On day 2, during a pitch about expanding into a new logistics branch, Maria raised a hand. Lucas looked surprised. You have something to say? She hesitated, then nodded. Your new expansion plan is impressive, on paper. But you're investing in a market already cornered by 2 giants. And your entry strategy is nearly identical to the one that failed in 2017. The room went silent. An executive, Brian, leaned forward. And you would know this how? I used to work at Corvex Global. In analytics. I left before the 2017 crash, but I helped build the original model. Lucas stared. Wait. You worked at Corvex? Maria gave a small shrug. Before I dropped out of the finance world to take care of my mother. Long story. Brian chuckled, clearly skeptical. You expect us to believe someone who was scrubbing trays 2 days ago once worked at one of our competitors? Lucas cut in before she could answer. I expect you to listen. Brian went quiet. Maria continued calmly. Their model failed because they didn't account for the hidden costs of late-mile delivery. If you follow the same route, you'll burn capital within 6 months. But if you shift focus to secondary hubs and use independent contractor partnerships, you might undercut the big players. There was a long pause. Then Gerald, the investor from the gala, nodded slowly. She's not wrong. Lucas turned to Maria. You free for a strategy session this afternoon? She gave a small smile. I have a shift at the diner at 6, but I've got a few hours. By the end of the week, Maria had spoken in 6 meetings, rewritten a draft proposal, and challenged 2 directors. Lucas was no longer just amused, he was impressed. Over late-night coffee in his office, he finally asked what he'd been wondering. Why didn't you stay in the game? Maria leaned back. My father left when I was 10. Mom got sick years later. No siblings. No backup. Just me. When she needed full-time care, I left Corvex. Took whatever work I could get. Bills don't care about your title. Lucas nodded, quietly absorbing that. You could have come back, he said. I tried. No one takes a resume seriously when your last job is kitchen staff. He looked at her for a long moment. I do. She met his gaze. Why? Lucas grinned. Because you're the only person in years who's told me I was wrong, and proved it. At the end of the week, Lucas offered her another week. Then a month. Maria said yes. She was no longer just a temporary observer. She was the quiet storm in the middle of Rentec, and people were starting to notice. Maria's office, if you could call it that, was more of a converted supply room with a desk and a second-hand chair. She didn't complain. She never asked for more. But what she lacked in title and space, she made up for in results. By her third week, people had stopped calling her the dishwasher. They now referred to her as that analyst Ren brought in. The tone had shifted from mocking to wary. And with good reason. Maria was unearthing things no one else noticed. One morning, she slid a folder onto Lucas's desk. You're hemorrhaging $1.2 million a year on tech licenses you're not even using. Lucas blinked. How? Auto-renewals. You upgraded to new platforms, but never cancelled the old ones. Department head signed off without cross-checking. The finance team missed it, probably because the expenses are buried across multiple divisions. Lucas flipped through the folder, his eyebrows lifting. How long did this take you? A day, Maria said. I used a comparison matrix and cross-referenced vendor logs with expense reports. He stared at her. Maria, you just did what our audit team failed to catch in a year. I'm thorough, she said simply. It wasn't just the money she saved, it was the way she thought. She looked at systems like puzzles. Not just where they worked, but where they failed. She asked questions no one dared to, and her background gave her a street-smart perspective that many in the glass tower had lost. At one executive meeting, she challenged a senior VP's marketing budget, right in front of everyone. The campaign you're running is targeting demographics that don't even use our services, she said. The VP bristled. And where exactly did you get that insight? Maria handed him a data chart. Your target age range is 18 to 25. But your most loyal, high-spend users are 35 to 50. Your engagement rates show it. You're pouring money into flash instead of function. Lucas watched silently as the room digested her words. Then he turned to the VP. Fix it. No more questions. As weeks turned into a month, Maria's role shifted again. Lucas started bringing her into private meetings. He gave her access to classified data. He even asked her opinion before closing a deal. One afternoon, as they reviewed a major acquisition pitch, Maria frowned. This merger looks good on the surface, but something feels off. Lucas leaned forward. What are you seeing? She circled a section of the report. The revenue numbers are inflated. These guys are cooking something. I'd bet my life they're hiding a major debt liability under one of their subsidiaries. Lucas raised an eyebrow. That's a serious claim. Maria didn't blink. I can prove it. She did. Within days, she'd traced the money trail to a shell company used to bury $30 million in losses. If the deal had gone through, Rentec would have inherited the mess. Lucas called off the acquisition, and saved his company from a financial black hole. After that, no one questioned Maria again. But while Maria rose in the ranks, she also drew attention. Not all of it good. One afternoon, Lucas's longtime advisor, Eleanor Stratton, pulled him aside. She's brilliant, no doubt, Eleanor said. But people are watching, Lucas. You're elevating her fast. Too fast. Some board members are uneasy. Lucas leaned back. You mean the same board that almost voted for the poisoned merger she exposed? Eleanor didn't flinch. I'm just warning you. There will be pushback. And questions. About her past. About her future. Lucas nodded slowly. Let them ask. She's the smartest person in this building. That night, as Lucas and Maria worked late, again, he looked up from his screen. You ever think about coming back for real? Not just as a consultant. Maria looked up. You mean full-time? He nodded. Executive role. With full authority. Maybe even a division of your own. Maria's expression changed. I never thought I'd get that chance again. Lucas held her gaze. You're not getting a chance. You're earning it. A beat of silence passed. Then Maria whispered, "Thank you." Lucas looked at her, something unreadable in his eyes. "No," he said softly. "Thank you." Maria stood in the center of the operations war room, surrounded by spreadsheets, models, and a half-dozen stunned executives. She had just laid out a revolutionary plan. "This," she said, pointing to a screen behind her, "is how we unlock the next billion." Lucas sat in the corner, arms folded, a smile tugging at his mouth. He didn't speak, not yet. He wanted to see how they responded to her. The proposal was bold. Unorthodox. Risky. Maria had spent the last month studying Renteka's core systems, distribution chains, digital assets, and international growth potential. What she found was a dormant opportunity in the form of a neglected platform, Renex Logistics, a tech asset they had written off years ago. No one believed in it, Maria explained, because it wasn't profitable at launch. But now? The market's shifted. We've got the tech, the reach, and the resources to build a logistics ecosystem powered by AI and independent distribution nodes. The CFO looked skeptical. It would take millions to revive. We're wasting more than that every quarter in outdated infrastructure, Maria replied calmly. What I'm suggesting isn't just revival, it's evolution. Another exec piped up. You're proposing we compete with Amazon Logistics? No, she said. I'm proposing we leapfrog them. Not by being bigger, but by being faster, leaner, and smarter. The room fell silent. Then Lucas finally spoke. Run me through the numbers again. Over the next week, Maria worked side by side with Lucas, barely sleeping, barely eating. She drew out every scenario, every risk and reward. Lucas had seen hundreds of pitches in his career, but none like this. It wasn't just smart, it was visionary. At the end of the week, Lucas called an emergency board meeting. The room was full of suits and side-eyes. Maria presented her plan with the calm of someone who had nothing left to lose, and everything to prove. The board, predictably, pushed back. Too risky. Unproven model. She's not even a formal executive. Lucas stood then, interrupting. She is now. The room snapped toward him. I'm making Maria Reyes Director of Strategic Innovation. Effective immediately. The room erupted in protests, but Lucas didn't flinch. She's already saved us millions, exposed a corrupt merger, and now she's offering us a shot at market domination. If you can't see the value in that, maybe you're in the wrong room. No one dared argue after that. Within months, Renex 2.0 launched quietly, then exploded. Independent contractors, small business partnerships, AI-optimized routes, it all worked. Faster deliveries, lower costs, skyrocketing user adoption. Investors went wild. Stock surged. Media dubbed it the comeback no one saw coming. And at the center of it all, Maria Reyes. The woman who once scrubbed dishes in the back of a ballroom. One evening, Lucas found her alone on the company rooftop, looking out over the skyline. We just closed a 5-country expansion, he said softly. You did it. Maria didn't turn. We did it. He stepped beside her. You realize you just changed the entire direction of this company. She glanced at him. And you realize you gave me the chance when no one else would. Lucas studied her profile. Why didn't you ever give up? Maria turned to him, eyes fierce. Because I knew I was more than what people saw. And I was waiting for someone to see it too. Lucas was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out a thin, velvet box and handed it to her. She opened it slowly. Inside was a plaque. Co-owner, Rentec Logistics Division. Maria Reyes. She stared at it, speechless. Lucas smiled. You built the fortune. You deserve to own a piece of it. For the first time, Maria's composure cracked. Her eyes welled up. Lucas, He touched her hand gently. No speeches. Just, stay. The gala was back. A year had passed since Lucas Wren had jokingly invited a dishwashing lady to a billionaire's table. Now, that lady was co-owner of one of the most explosive logistics ventures on the planet. Tonight, she returned, not through the back door with trays and gloves, but through the front, in a custom-tailored gown, her name on the guest list as Maria Reyes, director and co-owner, Rentec Logistics. As she stepped out of the car, cameras flashed. Media whispered. Former critics watched in stunned silence. Maria walked with quiet grace. She had nothing to prove anymore. Inside, she met familiar faces, many of whom had once ignored her. One such guest, a CEO who'd once sneered at her presence, now approached her with a nervous smile. Maria, I was hoping we could talk strategy sometime, he said, his voice overly polite. Maria gave a diplomatic nod. Happy to. But my schedule's tighter than it used to be. Lucas approached then, placing a drink in her hand. Enjoying the shift in tone, he whispered with a smirk. I'm not here for them, Maria said. No? She turned to face him. I'm here because of you. Lucas smiled but said nothing. The evening played out in glimmer and gold. Speeches. Music. Toasts. Then Lucas took the stage. Last year, he began, I made a joke that changed my life. Laughter. He held up his hand. I invited someone to this gala as a dare. What I didn't realize was, I wasn't giving her a chance. She gave one to me. The room hushed. He turned toward Maria. I didn't just gain a partner in business. I found someone who reminded me of what matters, talent, heart, grit. She didn't need my wealth. I needed her wisdom. He paused. And now, I'd like to ask her something far more important. The crowd stirred as he stepped down from the podium and walked to Maria. She blinked as he reached into his jacket and pulled out a second velvet box, smaller than the last. Gasps. He opened it. A ring. Maria Reyes, he said, I fell in love with your mind before I even knew your past. And now I can't imagine a future without you. Will you marry me? The room froze. Maria, stunned, stared at the man who had once offered her a joke and ended up giving her the world. She whispered, yes. The room erupted. Months later, they married in a small ceremony overlooking the ocean. No gala. No billionaires. Just friends, family, and a quiet moment shared between two people who had rewritten each other's stories. Maria never stopped working. Never stopped building. And Rentec? It soared. But her greatest achievement wasn't in numbers. It was in proving that one moment of recognition, one ridiculous dinner invitation, could unlock a future no one saw coming. Because sometimes, the greatest fortune isn't found in wealth or power, but in being seen for who you truly are.